Welcome to the DC Animated Movie Show, a YouTube series and podcast for the prestigious, ongoing catalog of DC animated movies. I am your host, Benjamin David. Tonight we are live on our YouTube channel, Above and Batman Beyond, and the audio from tonight's episode will also be on our DC Animated Movie Show podcast, so be sure to subscribe to both. So tonight it's Injustice, Gods Among Us. That's right, we recently got a reveal that one of our upcoming DC animated movies will be an animated adaptation of either the two video games, or it might be a comic adaptation, all still unclear, which we'll talk more about in just a minute. The reveal of Injustice came along with the press release for the upcoming Batman the Long Halloween Part 2, so pretty recently, and don't forget about our trailer reaction to Long Halloween Part 2, as well as our vid here on the channel, The Godfather of Long Halloween. I think the trailer dropped just the day after the press release. Press release, I believe, was May 18th, so recent stuff. Since we are live here on YouTube, if you're joining us in chat, please feel free to drop us some Q's and A's as well. Your own thoughts on the Injustice news or any other questions and comments on DC animated movies. As always, we'd love to hear what you guys think. So before we jump into it, if you're new here at the channel, please consider subscribing on YouTube. Click that notification bell so you don't miss any of our new content. For the podcast listeners, please subscribe to the pod, just like the vid series. We are DC Animated Movie Show. You can find the podcast on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Again, this particular episode is available in both video and audio form, so you get to pick your poison for today's show. But again, please subscribe to both, since there's plenty of YouTube stuff you're obviously not going to find in the podcast, and vice versa. And please follow us on Instagram as well. We are at DC Animated Movie Show. And follow the YouTube channel. We are at Batman Beyond Media. All right, you Elseworld citizens of the Injustice verse, let us watch our heroes fight. Sometimes the intro doesn't go well. That's what editing for the podcast is for, right, guys? All right, for those of you joining us live on YouTube, thank you for your patience. Please feel free to drop us a question anytime or let us know what you think of the Injustice news. So I'm not going to go too in-depth on this news, and not just because I don't go too deep on Injustice, to be honest, but mostly because there's still not a ton of information out there on this. So what we're going to do is just use this IGN piece here as our guide. In IGN, we trust when it comes to DC animated movies. I do have some background, really not a lot, like I said, or personal interest in the Injustice franchise. So we will get into kind of my background with it, what I do know. Then we'll talk about possibilities for what we might actually get. An adaptation of the video games. Will it be a comic adaptation? Because again, there's both with this franchise. And then we'll also get into the DC Showcase short included with Long Halloween Part 2, because I'm not sure if that information was yet released. So we will talk about that. Yeah, so let's get into it, guys. So a quick kind of IGN overview of this news. It says piece is from May 19th. So it says DC has revealed its next direct-to-video animated movie, and it's a big one. The wildly popular fighting game Injustice, Gods Among Us is getting a movie adaptation. So then it goes on to talk about that. Oddly, neither DC or Warner Brothers made a formal announcement, so it's not like they came out and made a big announcement about it. But it did. This information that the movie was coming out came along with the press release for Batman the Long Halloween Part 2, because with these press releases, if you've ever seen a press release for a DCAM for a DC animated movie, it drops the special features on that as well. We talk about this on the show a lot. In the sneak peek, if you ever want to see sneak peek featurettes, in fact, we have a new video coming out, our next vid here on the channel, our next kind of, the more edited, polished videos that we have here that tend to be a little shorter, whatever, us not going live or the podcast. Our next vid here on the channel is going to be some sneak peek featurette footage from the upcoming Batman the Long Halloween. So sneak peeks for the next DC animated movie always come with a new DC animated movie, meaning like Justice Society World War II just came out, and the sneak peek featurette for Batman the Long Halloween was on that. So Batman the Long Halloween Part 2, when the press release dropped for that, the sneak peek shit was released with that, so we knew that Injustice was coming out. That sounded probably way more complicated than it really is. But the point is, it's always fun to get a new DC animated movie because you always get sneak peek shit for the upcoming thing. So I guess what I'll do is just give my initial thoughts to this news, which once again, I don't have a lot. I don't go too deep with the Injustice game. I'm not a gamer. I got Injustice 2 when it came out. I said in the beginning that I did have some interest in this and personal background. Funny story, when I first started podcasting, literally before it was even above and Batman Beyond, my very first podcast ever, it's called Geek News Bat News. On Geek News Bat News, one of our featured kind of first topics was Injustice 2. Injustice 2 had just dropped. This was 2017. The first video game was from 2013. Then you had your sequel in 2017. Between 2013 and 2017, I'm pretty sure there were comics, and then there were the Injustice 2 comics as well. I know for a fact there were the Injustice 2 comics, because that's what we were actually, with the game dropping on that podcast, we were kind of doing updates of the of that book. I kind of smile about it because, that project kind of went south pretty quick, which has its own story that I'm not going to get into here. But the point is that I do have some background with Injustice. I just, I'm not a gamer, so I think that's mostly what it was. I will say though, and the reason I also go into my background with it is because the Injustice 2 comics, I can speak to those as being good. I can't speak for like the original Injustice comic. And we're going to get into kind of some of the IGN has some of the comic details that we'll briefly go over. But so meaning, and the reason I say that is because some of them are like prequel to the 2013 game, like leading up to the events of the game. Some of them are in between the first and second game. I just read the Injustice 2 comics. I can speak to them knowing that they were digital first. They came out weekly right around the time to kind of be like companions of the second one. I like the comics. So look, if you adapt any of that stuff, it's fun Elseworlds content. For not being a comic guy so much, you can usually get me into comics if it ties in with something multimedia. And even though I wasn't much of a gamer, again, I got Injustice 2. I did enjoy it mostly for whatever what you call the finishing moves, because that game is developed by NetherRealm, who also, of course, did Mortal Kombat. It's a WB video game jam, so it's got a lot of the Mortal Kombat tropes to it, and it's finishing moves, but DC finishing moves. That stuff's fun, but just like Mortal Kombat, I do finishing moves and it's just finish him, and then I get bored and I go off. So I'm not like a true gamer or anything like that. I did like the story of Injustice. I think it's cool, which we'll get into the details in just a second. But it is very Elseworlds, and I think I'm a little more intrigued with the Injustice 2 stuff that I read about than Injustice 1. I think Injustice 1 sets up a lot of interesting stuff, but I think what we're probably going to get is Injustice 1 stuff. Well, let's go over the story now in case you're not familiar. But this is what I think we're going to get for this movie. Because again, I want to talk about not just we're getting an adaptation of it. What are we getting an adaptation of? What do we think the story is actually going to be? This is what I think we're going to get. So again, this is from IGN. It's saying 2013's Injustice Gods Among Us and its 2017 sequel are set in an alternate... Whoop. Hello, reloading. I can't read something if it's getting reloaded. Are set in an alternate DC universe where Superman is driven mad after being tricked by Joker into killing his wife, Lois. That's why I say it's very Elseworld. Superman killing Lois and their unborn child. 5 years after that tragedy, Superman rules the world with an iron fist, forcing the Justice League on the regular forcing the Justice League of the regular DCU to cross dimensions and battle this tyrannical Man of Steel. So, it's whatever doesn't sound appealing to that. Whatever about that doesn't sound appealing to you, keep in mind, very Elseworld once again. It's also not just Elseworld. It's, literally multiverse in this story because the regular DCU, like they make that a point where the regular Justice League, so they're like, all right, look, this isn't, standard Superman. Standard Superman didn't take over. It's interesting to see now that we've gotten the Snyder Cut especially, but being in a post Zack Snyder DCEU, you could see a lot of, especially with the Nightmare sequence, Injustice stuff there. So that's kind of cool that we're going to be getting, an animated movie that people have more of a familiarity with, at least in terms of the concept of Superman being evil. I know a lot of people are like, oh, I'm so tired of Superman being evil. I feel you on that. I'm not imitating you because I'm one of them, right? But keep in mind that Injustice was a big part of kicking that off, right? And also it's like, I don't know. I don't know how tired of that I am. I'm a big Dark Knight Returns fan. So, and that was 2013. So it's almost a 10-year-old franchise, which is insane to think about. I can't believe thinking about that. But so those are my kind of initial thoughts on it. Oh, so sorry. This is what I think we're going to get what I just read. I think we're going to get, again, it'll be interesting to see how people react to like both a post Snyder and post Injustice world. So it's like, this is based on comics. It's based on the video game, but we've also gotten a major motion picture with the Snyder cut and with the previous Snyder shit that showed us bits of Injustice. So it'll be cool to see maybe that this animated movie will be slightly influenced by that. Who the hell knows? Probably not. I think we're going to get mostly a close adaptation to the 2013, just like this is what happened. This is why essentially, what is the excuse for our DC heroes to fight? And that's why my cheesy intro that I messed up. What did I say? Let us watch our heroes fight. That's all fucking Injustice is. It's an excuse to watch that happen. But what would make a movie interesting and what made the story compelling, what made that game extra compelling was that they actually gave you a story that's like, oh, okay, that's a believable reason for these characters to fight. So let's go a little deeper now that we've heard my thoughts on some stuff that IGN said some good points here. The Injustice saga has also been greatly expanded through various spin-off comics, which flesh out the 5 years. So these are the specifics of the comics that I was talking about before. Again, I'm familiar with the Injustice 2 comics, which were kind of the companion pieces to the second video game in 2017. So here's some more information on the Injustice comics. The Injustice saga has also been greatly expanded through various spin-off comics, which flesh out the 5 years leading up to the events of the first game, and then bridge the gap between the first game and the sequel. It's possible the animated movie could be an adaptation of the comics, which we've talked about. It could be an adaptation of the comics rather than the games, or even an entirely new story set within the dystopian DC universe. That last point is a good one. It'd be cool to get like the setup of Injustice, so we have the same excuse for our heroes to fight, but maybe a twist to it so that not everything is expected with any adaptation. It's like, don't give us directly what we've already gotten, especially if it's spoilery shit, because then there's no surprises. I'm tired of adaptations, but I am a little more excited about this because it's not this like, yes, it's a huge, very wildly popular, as IGN puts it, franchise, Elseworld of DC, but it's a video game, and it's kind of a gray area of what there's not like a strict canon that there might be with, for example, the upcoming Batman Long Halloween. It's like, that's a worshipped comic, and you're damned if you do, damned if you don't when you adapt stuff that's that. It's one book, right? So if that's the only shot you get is one movie, yeah, 2 movies, fine. But like, still, you have one piece of source material. You have an entire game of source. You have 2 games of source material. They're talking about in these articles that I'm reading about Injustice, they're hoping for a 3rd game to come out, which they're like, why haven't they announced that? So look, Injustice is huge, and then all the comics, comic series, plural. So I think I'm a little more excited for this because it's kind of a version of the DC universe that hopefully, they're not going to go too nuts with having some strict adaptation. And if they do, who's going to know the better? Like, yes, some people will for sure are hardcore Injustice readers, but I think you see the point that I'm getting into. So that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it in terms of what I have to say on the Injustice news. Again, I don't go super deep with it, so I don't know too much about it. But what also came out in the press release when I was digging a little deeper was some information on the upcoming DC Showcase animated shorts. Now, this excites me, especially right now, because my co-host on our Above and Batman Beyond show here in the channel and podcast, Eli Benson at Batman_Beyond_ fan page, my close friend, Beyond expert, and co-host on the channel. He and I right now are in the middle of our DC Showcase short review series. So we just started with 2020's Phantom Stranger. Phantom Stranger came with the Superman Man of Tomorrow Blu-ray. And then next we're doing Adam Strange. That's coming up, which came with Justice League Dark Apocalypse War, which brings me into this Injustice real quick. Actually, I'll talk about that in a second. But to finish out what I'm talking about with the shorts here, I'm about to list the 2 upcoming shorts, and I'm about to tease that we're going to have episodes just about these 2 specific shorts. But I did want to get into them because, at least to me, it's news along with these press releases. And to everyone, it's news, at least within the past few weeks. So we did get some news of past, and I'll stop burying the lead here. The 2 upcoming shorts we have are DC's The Losers, and then we also have Blue Beetle. In January, it was announced that 4 shorts were coming out. We got the Commandy reveal. Commandy came with Justice Society World War II. So these are the 2021 shorts I'm talking about now. With Batman Long Halloween Part 1, The Losers is coming. With Batman Long Halloween Part 2, the newest of news in terms of the shorts is that Blue Beetle will be the showcase short that comes with that. So that's pretty exciting. So far, again, we've gotten Commandy, Commandy. Then next, it's going to be The Losers, then Blue Beetle. I'm thinking after that, along with Injustice, because people are thinking that Injustice is going to be we're probably going to get it by the end of the year, and it's going to be the next one following Long Halloween Part 2. Again, that's not certain, but the way this stuff is released, as I explained before, that's the most likely, is that it's the next one to come, because Long Halloween Part 2 is in the fall. Part 1's in the summer. Part 2 is in the fall. So they're thinking that Injustice is going to be in the winter, if not the very beginning of 2022. So we have 2 more shorts to come. And then there was a Constantine short. To get into that briefly, the Constantine short, I did talk about this a bit on our Commandy review as well. These are all produced by producer Rick Morales, which is pretty exciting because I'm pretty sure he produced, actually, don't quote me on that. I don't want to get too deep in that. But he's produced some stuff that I've absolutely loved. And he also, but yeah, what's interesting about the upcoming shorts as well, and I'll get back to the review here, or just, to the news here in just a second. What's interesting about these next group of shorts is that Constantine, the final one. So again, you got Commandy, Blue Beetle, The Losers, and Constantine. Constantine then is going to kick off 4 more shorts. I don't know if those are produced by Rick Morales, but there's going to be like a kind of mini series of shorts. I don't know if that means we're also going to get DC Showcase shorts as we've been getting with releases. Like, since 2019, most of the DC animated movies, not all, have been getting these little companion DC Showcase shorts. I'm wondering if we're going to get another group of those as we normally have in addition to the Constantine series coming out. But just so you guys know, in case you didn't know that, there's a whole batch of Constantine kind of mini series of shorts to come. Now, Blue Beetle and The Losers, I'm going to leave you with this, meaning I am not going to read the synopses of either of these. I'm going to say that I'm going to leave you guys there with the episode because I would like to talk all about just these 2 shorts. I think that would be a great upcoming episode. And once again, we're in the middle of our DC Showcase short review series, so maybe we'll hit it on that as well. Again, we've done Phantom Stranger so far. We have Adam Strange coming up. Then we're going to talk about Blue Beetle and The Losers. Of course, it's in the press release. The information's out there if you want to read the synopses for those. But yeah, those are the 2 upcoming DC Showcase DC Showcase shorts coming. All right, guys, so that is it for our Injustice Gods Among Us, the announcement. Before we go, don't forget about our Long Halloween Part 2 trailer reaction, as well as our video here on the channel, The Godfather of Long Halloween. We also got another DCAM reveal that we're going to be talking about of a Super Pets movie, and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is Crypto the Superdog. Why the hell not? We haven't checked in with Chat Patty Chat. Of course, there's people on here. Sorry, 616 Man. Will it be 2D or 3D? Sorry. I wonder if Invincible opened up with the door for mature. Okay, so let's answer these questions one by one. These are all from 616 Man here on YouTube. Will it be 2D or 3D? Good question. That information has not yet been released. The only information we know so far is that it is one of the upcoming DC animated movies because it was just we know that it's one of the special features on Batman: Long Halloween Part 2. That's all we know. So I don't know if it's 2D or 3D. That's a great question. Because the 3D animation throughout the video game, of course, and it's they were digital comics to kind of fit that style. It's a great question. I wonder if Invincible. Oh, this is again from 616 Man. I wonder if Invincible opened up the door for mature animated stuff with the superheroes. Thank you for reminding me of mature content. I meant to get into this during this kind of announcement news here because Injustice is violent as hell, as we learned. It all kicks off with Superman not only killing Lois Lane, but his own unborn child in the process. That is an episode of The Sopranos, which I won't get into the details on that because it's brutal. But it's just funny because I just watched that episode today and something similar happens. To see Superman, our main hero of the DCU, do something like that, it's dark. It's violent as all hell. It's literally a fighting game. I think content-wise, adult content, as you said, I'm glad you brought up Invincible because, yeah, that's a good question. We're getting, in terms of animated adult content, it's like if you thought Justice League Dark Apocalypse War was violent, then you watch that, and that was very violent. To answer your question, though, I don't think Invincible needed to open that door for us, although, again, it was very much a step up for Justice League Dark Apocalypse War. I think Apocalypse War, that's violent, man. And you don't have to give us that same tone or whatever, but I think DC's already been there. A lot of these recent movies have been R-rated. So yeah, it's a great question. Batman Beyond will make a great trilogy. I agree. When Matt Reeves when it was announced back in 2016 that he was going to be doing, taking over the Bat franchise, there was rumors at first that it would be it would start off with a detective noir kind of Arkham Asylum movie. Then there would be a sequel. And then the third, since it's like an older Batman, it would kick off Batman Beyond. And then there'd be another trilogy. That was rumors. That's what people were kind of hoping and guessing at the time. Beyond fans were hoping and guessing. With Batfleck, you easily could have done that. And I am remiss to have not gotten that, but I think Beyond is perfect for a trilogy. You could put Beyond into any trilogy. You could totally fit that character. But I think because he's an older, it has to do with aging. It has to do with, being young, being old with old Bruce, being young with Terry. So much about the future, the past. There's so much you can do with that's what sequels are good for. Not just rehashing characters. It's like, oh, what are they doing in 10 years, 20 years? That's ripe for sequels. Then finally, once again for 616, man, DC is deep in on their animation department. Hell yeah, they're deep in on their animation department. And that's why I started this show. It sounds specific DC animated movie show, but I guarantee you, if it wasn't me, it would have been somebody else. There's 42 DC animated movies at this point. That doesn't even include the smaller ones, the Scooby-Doo movies, the Monsters, Mayhem, and all the shit, the DC quality animation. Some, of course, better than others, but it's a prestigious, ongoing catalog of DC. No, but it is. Our log line of the show, our slogan of the show is so true. And I totally agree. And frankly, it's so much better than the live action stuff. You got to give it up for a lot of the live action stuff and understand that, you can't produce as much live action stuff. It's a lot harder to produce, more expensive. You need higher profile people to kind of make your money back on a lot of it, probably, but who knows? I don't know the specifics of the mega Hollywood franchises, but I do think they overthink a lot of the live action stuff way too much. And if they treat it a little more like the DC animated stuff, and because there's so much less risk, it only costs a couple mil to produce these, we get such good DC stories with the animation. And, I hate to wish well for Marvel, but hopefully Marvel, I think, will, maybe with Disney Plus. We do have that, what's it called, coming? The What If animated stuff. So who knows? Maybe Marvel. I just think, animated superhero content, is not just for DC. You can do that anywhere. I hope Marvel will finally he just said the same thing. I hope Marvel will finally get their stuff together with their animated department. Here's another funny thing here, and we'll wrap in just a second. But like, so everyone's been saying like DC needs to catch up. DC needs to catch up. I mean, people probably are saying that maybe the past year or so, but like up to last year or 2 years ago, before DC fandom, it was very much like DC's got to catch up because Marvel was killing it. Up to the Infinity Saga, killing it. I say up to for a reason though. Like, I'm sorry, those Disney Plus shows, if that's the future of the Marvel Universe, I thought that was going to make the Marvel Universe even better. I was like, oh, sick. We're going to get, not just series, but mini-series, so they'll be treated well, and it'll be like Marvel, but, the Marvel movies, just as good, but serialized. Those shows aren't even close, in my opinion, to as good as the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like, hoping that the potency of those shows was going to remain, hoping the potency of those movies was going to remain with miniseries wasn't a thing that happened. I am disappointed in that. And so here's the thing. It's like with the Batman, as good as that movie looks, with the Suicide Squad, as crazy as that movie is, but as good as it also looks. Even if you put aside what DC has coming out live action, the fact is Marvel hasn't, in my opinion, really been doing great in live action. And they also, as we just established for the past 10 minutes, like 5-10 minutes, where have they been with animation? So I think DC is gonna have, look, I never apologize for they've always had the animated stuff. So to me, it's not like I've ever felt the need to explain myself. Like I feel a lot of DC fans feel the need to explain themselves because they're more live action people, maybe. But I think DC is about to show Marvel what is up. Superhero comics is perfect for animation. It's like storyboards. Absolutely. Again, that's from 616, man. Like, dude, superhero, I've been talking about this on several different podcasts, specifically recently. So it's funny that we're talking about it. But look, I know, and this is probably the wrong podcast to say, but DC animated movie show. I just think superhero content on TV, it's a no-brainer. And animated series of anything, not just Batman. Again, Marvel, where the hell are they with just a good animated? I mean, I heard that Guardians animated series was decent, but come on, where is Marvel with? Where Dark Horse? I don't care. Give us a Dark Horse Terminator animated series. Where's Paramount with a Terminator animated series? There's so much geek content out there that you really don't have to put a lot of thought into, probably. Meaning, you need good writers, but you don't need to overthink this shit. Just take a one-shot comic, put it into an episode of television. You can't do one-to-one. It's not literal. I shouldn't say literal translation. And of course, with adaptations, you treat the medium for what it is. Just point is, make good TV with the stories that are sitting there, and come up with new stories too. But I think that we talked about this recently with the Cape Crusader stuff, Batman Cape Crusader. It seems like that series is just simplifying things, and it's probably going to produce some of the best Batman content we'll ever get. In my hope, of course, I don't know this, but my hope is that just with the pitch, and all you have to do is pitch the right project. I just need the right pitch, meaning what are we talking about? Is it noir? Is it based on the comics, or is it based at least on what the original features of this character are? In terms of Batman, it's noir, it's detective. It comes from comics. It could be adapted as such. Short, good, detective stories. I think that if you apply that heroes wide, we're going to get a lot better stuff. And I think Injustice, I think it's perfect for a movie. I would not want an animated series of Injustice. People have said they've wanted that. I don't need more than one movie here and there of Injustice. I think make a brutal, badass Apocalypse War level Injustice movie. Give us a good excuse for our heroes to fight. Don't make it too long. Let's blow this thing and go home. So thank you so much, 616 man on YouTube. As always, I forget to check in with chat, and then I don't until I'm literally finishing the show. But thank you again for coming in. So another recent video, once again, for our DCAM show is my review of Commandy, The Last Boy on Earth. Commandy is the newest of DC Showcase animated shorts, and it came with the recent DC animated movie, Justice Society World War II. So you can find the reviews for both those movies right here in the channel. And of course, stay tuned for more coverage of both Long Halloween parts 1 and 2 and the DC Showcase shorts, again, Blue Beetle and The Losers. So if you're new here at the channel, please consider subscribing on YouTube. Click that notification bell so you don't miss any of our new content. And for the podcast listeners, please subscribe to the pod. Just like the vid series, we are DC Animated Movie Show. You can find the podcast on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Again, this particular episode is available in both video and audio form, so you get to pick your poison for today's show. But again, please subscribe to both, since there's plenty of YouTube stuff you're obviously not going to find in the podcast, and vice versa. And finally, follow us on Instagram. We are DC Animated Movie Show. And follow the YouTube channel as well. We are at Batman Beyond Media. So I have been Benjamin David. Benjamin David? I have been Benjamin David. Animated, we stand. Benjamin David. That's a good one. That's a new one.